From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. Kyriakos Mitsotakis has been sworn in as the new Prime Minister of Greece. His right-wing New Democracy Party won the country's general election with nearly 40% of the vote, defeating former PM Alexis Tsipras and his left-leaning Syriza party, which got 31%. Syriza took power in 2015 on an anti-austerity platform, but their plans were crippled by the Troika of the European Commission, the European Central Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. New Democracy ran on a platform of privatizing and cutting regulation.
And of course, our discussions with our European creditors will begin immediately. But we've made our plan very, very clear. There are no real surprises here involved. We want to drive a real reform agenda for the country that is ambitious, very bold, and very, very detailed. And of course, we've made the case that lower primary surpluses will be to the benefit of everyone.
In other news, the International Criminal Court has convicted former Congolese military leader Bosco Ntaganda of war crimes. Ntaganda was convicted for acts allegedly committed while he was military operations chief at the Union of Congolese Patriots in the Democratic Republic of Congo between 2002 and 2003. His sentence will be determined at a later hearing. He also, of course, denies the charges. Ntaganda is the fourth person to be convicted of atrocities at the ICC since its inception in 2002. The court has been widely criticized as biased against Africans, while atrocities in other countries aren't featured on the court's agenda.
As court sentence counts 14, 15 and 16, guilty of conscripting and enlisting children under the age of 15 years into an armed group and using them to participate actively in hostilities. As conscience count 17, guilty of intentionally directing attacks against protected objects as a war crime. And finally, as conscience count 18, guilty of destroying the adversary's property as a war crime.
The African Union has made history with the launch of the Continental Free Trade Zone at a meeting in Niger. The pact is set to unite 1.3 billion people and create an economic bloc worth more than $3 trillion. It is the largest such agreement since the creation of the World Trade Organization in 1994 and has the potential to unlock Africa's economy by boosting intra-regional trade, strengthening supply chains and sharing expertise. Nigeria's decision to sign in after months of talks has further strengthened the group, with Africa's largest economy being one of the last countries to commit to the deal.
The eyes of the world are turned on Africa, and the success of the FTA will be the real test to achieve the economic growth that will turn our people's dream of welfare and equality of life into a reality. And this will reinforce our negotiating position on the international political economic stages. Therefore, it will constitute a new stage for the African continent on the global economic map and will allow Africa to take a new position on the international scene and allow us to realize our dream and our founding fathers. It will turn the FTA into a ship that carries all African countries without exception to achieve shared benefits. I would like to therefore call on all the member states to sign and ratify the FTA because the more states sign up, the greatest trade benefits to our African populations.
And the Assembly has declared that July 7th will be officially celebrated across the continent as the Africa Day of Integration to commemorate the signing of the agreement. Phase 1 is expected to come into effect on July 2020, while the negotiations for the second phase must be concluded by December 2020. Phase 1 addresses issues to do with trade of goods and services between countries, and Phase 2 is meant to tackle outstanding issues such as investment, competition, policy, and intellectual property rights. Let's go to our correspondent in Pretoria, Matuba Malaji, who explains what the deal means.
The Africa trade deal that's being signed by various countries here on the continent is something that's been seen as good on paper, but experts and economists are saying it's not practical. Let me take you back a little bit to remind you this is a project that was championed by former AU chair Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda, and he started championing this project with reducing visa regulations to his country for other African nations, and Ethiopia followed suit in that regard, trying to improve trade here on the African continent. But now many African countries have different economic prospects, so that makes it very difficult for all that other countries have. South Africa to get into on the African continent for other Africans. So that is one of the things that will have to be considered, easing the border control and having trade deal laws or rules rather, that will benefit all countries evenly, so that there are no complaints of other countries getting more than they realize anytime soon. But the practical point of view, saying that the ambitions of this trade deal will not be realized anytime soon, because there's still even the issue of a common currency that will have to be, at least the countries that are participating into this trade deal, making this is in the best interest of their country. So in drips and drabs, we'll see more countries buying into this trade deal, and maybe that's when we'll see it reaching its fruition. It's back to you, studio.
Matuba Matlaji from Pretoria. To other news, Deutsche Bank, the Deutsche Bank, the first private commercial bank in Germany, thousand jobs. Means staff cuts worldwide as it downsizes its investment banking arm. The move will cost as much as $8 billion. While lamenting the massive layoff, Deutsche Bank said that huge investment plans are still in place.
Unfortunately, the restructuring will also cost jobs. It's unavoidable. But we assume that we will manage this with our own power, and we won't need capital from our shareholders. Instead, in a few years, we will be able to give back capital to our shareholders. A new era starts for the Deutsche Bank. A new era in which we aim to lead Deutsche Bank back onto the path of success for our clients, for our staff, and of course, for our shareholders.
Coming up, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro expresses his support for child labor. Don't go away.
Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform. A critical place committed to the that transformed the world today. On Monday, only on Venezuela.
Welcome back. Another social leader has been murdered in Colombia. The South Cordoba Campesino Association announced the murder of its member Manuel Osuna Tapias by armed men from the Virgilio Peralta Arenas block. According to the association, the incident happened on the morning of July 6th in the municipality of San Jose de Ure in the Cordoba state. He becomes the second social leader to be murdered in less than 2 weeks. On June 27th, another leader, Manuel Gregorio González Segura, was tortured and murdered in the same state. 8 campesino social leaders have been killed in the state since the beginning of the year. More details with our correspondent in Bogotá, José Manuel Jiménez.
The Department of Cordoba is in the news again with the murder of another campesino in the south of the department. The killing happened early on Saturday in the Cerro community. This region has seen several murders of campesinos and community leaders this year by armed groups, especially one paramilitary group known as the Caparos. The governor of Cordoba has denied that there is a wave of violence in the area, but according to the Campesino Organization for the south of Cordoba, 8 campesinos have been murdered there this year. The previous killing was of Manuel Gregorio González, who was kidnapped, tortured and killed on the 27th of June. This latest murder was of Manuel Osuna Tapias, also by these paramilitary groups, who again tortured him and then decapitated him. Since the signing of the peace agreements in November 2016, more than 600 social leaders and human rights advocates have been murdered in Colombia.
Jiménez from Colombia. Stay in Colombia. Senators Iván Cepeda, Antonio Sanguino and Roy Barreras have denounced the country's intelligence agency to the prosecutor's office for preparing a campaign to discredit them.
The senators Roy Barreras and Antonio Sanguino and I have directed a letter to the President of the Republic today to denounce that we have information according to which the National Intelligence Directorate planned illegal interception of our communication with the end result of being a campaign to discredit us, and at the same time, possible penalty investigations with false bases against us.
We're demanding that the President of the Republic protects our security and our integrity as members of Congress of this Republic and as opposition representatives in Congress. We need guarantees that we can exercise our parliamentary duty and act in defense of peace and the protection of human rights.
Now we turn to Venezuela, where the Communications Minister Jorge Rodriguez announced that the negotiations between the Venezuelan government and the opposition will resume this week in Barbados. Rodriguez showed a picture of the communication from the Norwegian government backing the talks and said that history will recognize the tenacious spirit for dialogue demonstrated by the Bolivarian government, our eternal commander Hugo Chavez and President Nicolás Maduro. We hope that their efforts in the consolidation of peace and national understanding will bear fruit. And on Sunday, President Nicolás Maduro presided over the graduation of command and technical officers belonging to the bicentenary class. At the ceremony, he confirmed their high military ranks.
I have decided to ratify the head command position of Vladimir Padrino Lopez as Minister of Popular Power for Defense, for him to continue with his brightness, with his intelligence, with his military leadership, with his loyalty at the head of the Ministry of Popular Power of Defense.
Honduras Foreign Affairs Authority Hondurans have died while trying to migrate to the United States. In hundreds of Hondurans centers where one person recently died.
And pictures show the of many centers.
Why haven't they asked any questions about children's conditions? The reason why many families continue leaving the North Triangle is because of you. You all children's deaths.
According to an official from the United States, 34,000 Bolderamos died, and there is still no explanation about his death.
Is calling for this investigation. We as the
Heads of more than 100 Honduran migrants so far, the flow of cases where they have
there with the children and the fathers. This means we were also
a strategy to demotivate thinking of embarking on the same.
They are using
According to the detention center's records, in the first months of this, than 11,000 Honduran crossing points.
The President of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, has come out in support of child labor, citing his own life. The president said that he worked in the fields collecting bananas since he was young, and therefore child labor shouldn't be seen as wrong. Brazilian law prohibits children younger than 16 from working, but statistics show that almost 2.5 million children and teens between the ages of 5 and 17 currently work in Brazil.
Look, when I worked, I wasn't hurt at all. A child of 8 or 9 years old works somewhere. Many people denounce it as forced labor or child labor. The smokes coca says anything. Work brings dignity to
The 39 Cuban city, Santiago de Cuba. It's dedicated to paying the 60th anniversary of the triumph of the revolution, and Uruguay has been invited as the guest country of honor.
The culture is freedom itself, is an expression of love, of
the people, it is culture, it is identity, it is the Caribbean. That's what Cuba is, Santiago is. The Caribbean unites us.
Building where Fidel The Festival of Fire takes over the city and no one can escape the contagious Caribbean rhythms. The fury of the drums bewitches us all.
The Caribbean calls us through its own charisma for everything that it represents. Out of it. And to see the politics to everyone that
shows in theaters, squares, institutions and communities, workshops, conferences, theoretical discussions and exhibitions make up the Caribbean Festival's program.
Few forums call for a reflection on the Caribbean itself, to think about our America from the Caribbean. It's an anti-hegemonic thought running against. It's exactly what we are. That it seems the moment has returned. This is a of joy, of resistance.
Throughout these days, the candombe, Uruguay and tango, coming from Argentina and Uruguay, fill the streets with joy. The two sounds have been declared intangible cultural heritage by UNESCO. The 2019 edition of the Festival of Fire has been dedicated to Uruguay. This is the Caribbean Festival, an unimitable cultural event, a space of anti-hegemonic reflection and of resistance.
After the break, Madagascar football fans go wild as their team take a historic step in the Africa Cup of Nations. Stay with us.
The life is full of moments. Moments of fight. Moments of hope. Moments that transcend. Moments that you can live in. Telesur documentaries. Sundays. Only on Telesur.
Thank you for joining us again. Talks between Afghan groups from across the political spectrum and the Taliban have entered their second day in Qatar. The intra-Afghan summit, sponsored by Qatar and Germany, hopes to create a lasting peace after 18 years of war in the country. The Taliban joined the summit on the condition that those in attendance are present in a personal capacity. Russia has previously hosted 2 similar summits.
The efforts made by many over the past few years and months, especially the ongoing talks between the United States and the Taliban, have opened up a historic opportunity. But as important as those talks are, they cannot be enough. Dialogue has to turn into a meaningful negotiating process.
Qatar is continuing its efforts as an honest mediator in the Afghan crisis in order to lay the foundations of peace between different parties in Afghanistan and build trust through a comprehensive and permanent ceasefire, protecting civilians and releasing prisoners, captives, and hostages, and bringing views of concerned parties closer to achieve peace.
The Syrian government has facilitated the return of around 1,000 people to the city of Qusayr. Government troops, together with Hezbollah, drove out terrorist fighters 6 years ago, but large parts of the city remain in ruins from the fighting. Former residents celebrated as they entered their city for the first time since fleeing the conflict. Up to 6.2 million people have been displaced by the war in Syria.
We started planning to return the residents to their city gradually. They will return gradually because there are a large number of houses that are really damaged. More than 30% of Qusayr is damaged. The infrastructure was methodically destroyed. We needed time to re-establish the electricity and power networks to the area.
We head to sports now. Debutants from the Africa Cup of Nations, Madagascar, have a historic qualification to the quarterfinal stage of the football tournament with a penalty shootout victory over the Democratic Republic of Congo after a 2-2 draw. Ibrahim Amara's 9th-minute strike put Madagascar ahead. However, the DR Congo responded in the 23rd minute through Cedric Makamba. Madagascar got ahead again in the 77th minute, but their relief was short-lived as the DR Congo leveled the scores in the 90th minute. They will face either Ghana or Tunisia in the quarterfinals. In the other group, Mali and Ivory Coast will play in all West Africa fixture on Monday. The winner will face Algeria, who booked their quarterfinal spot by beating Guinea 3-0.
We want to go as far as possible. We want to continue to live this dream and have fun and give others a good time as well. That was my speech tonight, my last words in my briefing. Today, it's about enjoyment. The enjoyment we get and the enjoyment we give to our 25 million Malagasy people.
Meanwhile, dozens of Madagascar fans took to the streets of the capital city, Antananarivo, to celebrate the team's historic qualification. Sunday's win added up to the excitement that has been building up on the Indian Ocean island since last week, when the team emerged top of Group B after beating 3-time tournament winners Nigeria 2-0.
I'm happy with this Barea victory. I've never seen it before in my life. We were told we were weak, but we showed that we were strong. The Malagasy people are very happy. Thanks to the Bareas, we are more united. Thank you very much, Bareas. Come on.
Also in football, the United States beat the Netherlands 2-0 to win its 4th Women's World Cup title. Captain Megan Rapinoe converted a VAR-awarded penalty in the 61st minute, and Rose Lavelle wrapped up the victory 8 minutes later as the U.S. added to their 1991, 1999, and 2015 titles. A victory parade is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday on the streets of Manhattan. The U.S. team has won 13 straight matches and are unbeaten in 16 since losing a friendly match to France in January. And the Copa America came to an end with a thrilling final between hosts Brazil and Peru on Sunday. Brazil won the match 3-1. Everton Soares put Brazil ahead in the 15th minute before a Paolo Guerrero penalty leveled the scores. But just before halftime, Gabriel Jesus found the net with a sublime strike to put Brazil 2-1. In the second half, Brazil's substitute Richarlison sealed the win for the region's most important football tournament. And with that, we end our news brief, but you can find all of our stories by checking our website, telesurenglish.net. And you can join us on social media since we're on Facebook, Twitter, and also Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.